After many years of hiking in the Altra Lone Peaks, I've decided to leave them behind. I tried the Lone Peak 7s out, which are in my hand right now. I hiked on them for over 50 miles, under 100, somewhere in there, and they are just not the same. And it's a sentiment that's been echoed by you guys writing into me. And I even have a friend who works as a guide in one of the national parks, and he said they used to recommend the Lone Peak 6s to their clients, and they no longer recommend the Lone Peak 7s because the shoe has a different feel and there are quality problems. Before we get into it, I just want to thank everyone who supports the channel. There's no sponsorships or promotions here. This is just a completely independent review, so thank you for everyone who supports the channel and makes this possible. If you want to say thank you for the video, you can just click that little thumbs up button, and it's an easy way to do it. So let's jump in. The outsole on the new Lone Peak 7s is great. It is much better than the Lone Peak 6. The Lone Peak 6 had a reputation for being a little bit slippery, especially if you're going over granite or something slick. It was kind of tough, but these 7s have been much, much better. I don't know if it's the material or the lug size or a combination of all those things. They also added these little sections on the toe and the heel, this little different type of tread here. I don't know what it does, but the grip is definitely better. Now, one of the first things I noticed was that the upper was different. And when I looked closer, I noticed the drainage holes were gone and the material is a little bit different. There's also no stitching on these. And I was a little bit worried that the removing the drainage holes would make these shoes not dry as quickly. That was one of the great things about the 6 is you could kind of barrel through a stream and it would dry out relatively quickly, keeps your feet dry when they get hot or sweaty. I don't know what this material is, but it's definitely porous enough that it drained and dried as good, if not maybe a little bit better than the Lone Peak 6s. In terms of the stitching, it's all glued. There might be stitching underneath the glue. I've had shoes when I've left them in my car and it gets over like 100 Fahrenheit. I've had the glue come apart before. I don't know if it's gonna happen with these. Hopefully not. I have heard reports that the durability is not great, that the shoes have come apart. Not my experience. They seem to be holding up fine. Another thing to note about the upper is it feels more snug. I don't know if they reduced the size of the material on the top, but it feels more snug, and the tongue is definitely thicker than it was on the Lone Peak 6. So it feels more snug on the top. You'd think that would be a good thing because in the 6s it was, you could slide around if you didn't have it laced up correctly. But I found that it was overall a little tight and a little narrow, and I'll talk about that in a second when I talk about the overall fit. Other thing to note on the upper is the lacing system. They've changed the laces to a different brand. They feel a little bit cheaper. They're a little stiffer and harder to tie. Also, the lacing holes have changed. They've removed the side lacing hole on the side, so if you did like a custom lacing pattern, you're not going to be able to do it here. And they also took 2 of the holes and they added this piping on the side, this little piping here. So far, it's been okay, but I've had this piping on other shoes, and I found that after a while, it will chafe through the lace and break the lace. I haven't seen that on this shoe at all, and again, it's only been over 50 miles or so, but just a heads up, I have seen that on other shoes. So let's talk about the heel. The heel has this new U-shaped piece of plastic that's sort of a hard piece of plastic here, so if you were stepping down before and you liked your foot to splay out and spill over the heel, now it will be constricted by this plastic cup. The heel did feel a little bit tighter when I was hiking. I don't know if that's just my heel or whatever, but it definitely has a different feel in the heel, that's a rhyme, than the Lone Peak 6s did. Another change back here that I didn't really like is they changed the orientation of the pull tab, that little pull tab on the heel. It used to be horizontal, so you could just hook your finger in from the bottom and pull it up. Now they've made it sideways, and it seems a little bit smaller. Maybe I have big sausage fingers, but it's harder for me to get my finger into this and pull it up. The 7s are marginally heavier than the 6s, but on the trail, effectively, I didn't really notice any difference. The big thing for me on the 7s, and the big reason why I'm leaving these behind, is because of the overall feel. Now, with the 6s and below, when I put the shoes on, it felt like a moccasin or a sock or a slipper. And I know people who wear these as slippers around their house. The shoe would conform around your foot, and when your foot stepped down and your foot expanded, that upper would expand with your foot. So it really worked with your foot to make sure that there was no friction, that it was comfortable, and I'd never get blisters in the Lone Peaks. But with this new shoe, the upper feels narrower and the outsole feels narrower. Overall, it feels like a much narrower shoe. I measured the narrowest point of the outsole with a caliper. It's a few millimeters narrower on it, and it definitely feels narrower on the upper. So what I would say, I wear 11.5 regular and for both of these shoes. I would say if you wear a regular shoe and you want the the same feel as the older one, you might want to go with a wide. You might want to give yourself a little more room so that your feet can splay out. If you did that, this might be an acceptable shoe. If you have 6s now and you're not sure what to do, I would just go and try to find some more 6s. I've seen them all over the place on sale. The 6 is still a really good shoe. If you buy a couple, it might last you until the 8s come out, and maybe when the 8s come out, it'll feel more like the old or the classic Lone Peak, pliable, wider feel that was there before. So get the 6s if you're going to upgrade. If you're going to get the 7s, go with a little bit of a wider shoe. Or if you just want to try something different, here's what I recommend. I like these Terra Venture 3 shoes. Now, I did a review on these comparing them to the Lone Peak 6s a little while ago. These feel almost identical to the Lone Peak 6. They're stiffer on the upper, definitely more durable, and they definitely have a better grip and a better sole. And I've worn these at least 500 miles, and they're still in really good shape. And it's just a really comfortable shoe. Now, this shoe has 3 millimeters of drop instead of 0 drop like the Lone Peaks, but I found that I don't really feel 3 millimeters. It doesn't make a difference when I'm walking. It just feels like a kind of flat, minimal shoe. It's not as cushioned as the Lone Peak, but again, it's comfortable enough. I've hiked really long, over 20-mile hikes in these, and I've never gotten blisters in these as well. So I'd consider these. They also vent and dry quickly. I have a video on that. I'll put a link to that under this video if you want to check out that comparison. But the Terra Venture 3 is a good bet. The other shoes I wear are these Hoka Stinsons. Now, these are a very different type of shoe than the Terra Venture or the Lone Peak. They're very, very comfortable. They have this high stack height here, really high, a lot of cushion underneath. I wear these when I have to go up like drastically in mileage. Also, if I'm hiking on a really rocky trail, these things are great. What you lose in the process is trail feel, and they're a little bit high. It's easy to kind of trip over things and clip things when you're not used to hiking in these. But these Hoka Stinsons are a really great option if you want something that's really cushy and really forgiving and you don't really care about trail feel, you just want the maximum comfort. You can't really beat these Stinsons. So next on the list for me is to try out the Hoka Speedgoat 5s. I've heard great things about them. I haven't tried them in a few versions, so hopefully that will do the trick. If you guys have recommendations on what I should be trying, leave me a comment on YouTube. I'll do my best to try those shoes out. I'm always on the quest for the perfect hiking shoe, also the perfect day pack. I will have a video on what day pack I'm using coming up soon as well. And if you have any questions about the 7, leave me comments. I will do my best to answer them. And if you think I should give the 7s another try, maybe I need to spend more time in them, let me know too. Maybe I'll try another pair, or maybe I'll buy another pair and get the wides. I'm not sure, but right now, Speedgoat 5 is next on the list.